As we talked about earlier, former President Trump has been ordered to pay nearly $355 million. He has been barred from doing business as well in New York for 3 years. This was all part of his civil fraud case.
And joining us to talk about this and catch up on some other political news of the week is Professor William Muck with North Central College. A lot to get to, so let's jump right in here now. So this was a decision by a judge, not a jury. What kind of impact, if any, is this going to have in Trump's run for the presidency?
Well, I think we can think about the narrow and then the sort of the broader impact. The narrow impact is that this is a lot of money they're talking about, and it's going to be difficult for Trump to continue to address his day-to-day needs with this sort of financial implication. But you're right to speak about the broader impact. This is the first of many, right? So we've got many more trials coming, and it's not only going to take his time, but it's going to sap his energy. And he's got to try to find a way to turn these trials into campaign events. And as we saw today, it doesn't always work out that way. So this is going to be an increasing burden on the president, both in terms of his time, but also confusing his political messaging.
He does plan to appeal today's case, but $355 million, that's a lot of money. Is this something the Republican Party or Trump would start to try to get fundraising for to help cover campaign expenses?
Well, that gets into sort of this nitty-gritty ground of whether he can do that or not. And then the number's likely to go up. It's after interest, it's like going to be over $400 million. Now, he certainly will appeal that, but nevertheless, he'll have to take out a bond. So at some point, these become real personal expenses for him. It is likely to sap all of his cash that he's got available to him. And he still has legal expenses and all these other things. So he might have to draw on campaign funds to continue to move forward. And as you know, Donald Trump, those financial resources matter a lot to him. So just at a psychological and a personal level, this is clearly a major blow to the former president.
Okay, let's switch gears now. A story that's kind of under the radar because of all the other political news that's been happening, and that's the FBI informant that's been charged with lying about a bribery scheme involving President Biden and his son Hunter. So just kind of recap, Alexander Smirnov accused the Bidens of taking bribes from a Ukrainian energy company, and it's this claim that's the focus of the Republican impeachment effort against Biden. So do you think that's going to have an impact? Is that going to be dropped as a result of this?
Well, in many ways, it should be. This has always been an impeachment that's been searching for evidence, right? It's been a fishing expedition, and this was the only bit of evidence that Republicans felt really you had some legs to stand on. So if it goes away, really the case for the impeachment drops as well. Now, but I don't think that's going to be the case, right? So for Republicans, it's not so much about the actual impeachment. It's about the political process, the politicization of all of this. So I imagine they will continue to charge forward with the impeachment process because that's what the voters and supporters want.
One more thing we want to ask you about. Finally, President Biden is blaming the death of Russian opposition leader Alexei Navalny, down in prison overnight, as you know, directly on Vladimir Putin. So the president's urging House Republicans now to pass some aid for Ukraine sooner rather than later because of what happened. Talk about what kind of impact Navalny's death is going to have.
Well, one hopes it sort of galvanizes the Congress to say that, you know what, let's put some perspective on this and let's think about the sort of the dictatorship that Vladimir Putin is running, and let's fund Ukraine to push back against this. I don't anticipate that being the case, because what we've got is we've got a small contingent of the Republican Party that is holding firm about not funding Ukraine until they get a deal on immigration. So we're sort of at this impasse. Now, it is possible that the Congress as a whole moves and bypasses leadership, but that's also really, really difficult. So, I mean, it's sort of a game of chicken right now. And the problem is that Ukraine is heavily dependent upon this. And again, it forces us to remember the significance of what's going on in Russia.
Professor William Muck, thank you as always for joining us this afternoon.
Thanks for having me.